right, we're going to begin this restorative practice by creating a dialogue between the hips and the back, and it's going to look like inner leg, focus. So let's go for it. You got your bolster across the mat space. You got your blankets in a stack lengthwise behind, and you sit up on the bolster. Okay. Have a belt and a big loop. Go ahead and just put it overhead. Let it rest in your lap, and bring the soles of your feet together. Okay. Now, as you feel where you are on this bolster, I like to kind of almost Humpty Dumpty it, where I'm kind of at the back. So I feel like I'm going to drop back and Humpty Dumpty it. But what I'm going to focus on is the inner leg path. Okay. And the inner leg path, as we lean forward, you might even get a hold of your ribs and a little bit lower, and notice, well, this is my kind of hip, my complex hip. And as I lean forward, if you need blocks, you can stuff them under the legs, but see if you can reach to your feet, hold on to the ankles, but try to get the inside line of the feet, like the big toes together. You can even reach to your big toes. When was the last time you kind of snuggled your big toes together? So they're just side by side, right? It's not like we're trying to interlace our toes or anything today. Okay, so as my forearms press down to my legs, okay, I'm trying to reach out of my back into this arch. So keep the position of the feet as well as you can coordinate them connecting. They may slip apart. The big toes may not stay together. Notice they don't really like to just stick together like this. So try to kind of wake up the feet. All right, a little bit of toe wake up. Bring your hands back to the base of the torso, right to the hip connection, and try to press down to the bones that connect the pelvis right to the leg. So it's almost like you reach the web space between the index and the thumbs, and just kind of hold there and encourage this in-breath, lift the heart up to the sky. And as you out-breath, reach forward at the hips. Okay, you might not be thinking you're reaching out of your hips, but we are going to get pretty hipful here. Okay, now when you come on up, for me, I'm trying to assign the movement out of my back, right? I'm trying to coordinate this strength here. So now I'm going to sit down in front of the bolster, still got the same knee position. I'm going to get my belt. Oh, that got stuck under my bolster. That's funny. Okay, scoop up your feet with your belt, your loop, and then bring the buckle up near your hips so you can easily grab a hold of it, meaning if you need to get out of the pose. Take a block set, one under each thigh. All right, now we have a bolster right at the back of the pelvis, and now all this movement we are going forward and hopefully getting some warmth here, which admittedly, I feel very little, but I'm going to warm it up now. As I lower back, I'm going to tilt my blocks, contour them in. I don't mind the belt being that snug. I know what this is doing, right? For a sacroiliac area, it's pretty helpful for this area. So as I lean back, if you want to loosen up the belt, go for it. The belt is around the eyebrows of the buttocks. Could be a little lower, but keep moving back. If you're going to have a sandbag, you might want to lift that up, place it across the ribs, or for me, I'm going to go heart to belly. As I lower back, now I got to decide how much blanket do I need for comfort. So for me right now, this ain't cutting it. This is a little too low. I will warm up. So as I get the top blanket, I'm just going to slide it in closer and fold it up once more. And then my blanket corner, the fold is right at the occiput, so the shelf at the back of my skull. Okay, your skull has been shelved. Oh, geez. Okay, so as you create that length in the neck, tailbone draws under, like you're trying to get this hip kind of plateaued into circulation, the hip plateau. And if the sand is, you think you can blame it on the sand, you can always take it off and see how that goes, right? The sand is usually going to be helpful to make the imprint of the arch right now, the curve. But it doesn't mean you can't take it off. We're not using it. Stretch the arms out and feel where the shoulder joints are loosening up. This is one of my favorites because we usually use the bolster lengthwise under the spine, but this is an interesting one because your shoulders feel the bolster, right? So if you're too far downwards, your bolster is probably not feeling too good. So you have to find a good spacing. We're all different lengths in our torso, so it might take you time. I imagine some of us, the sacrum's a little downwards from the bolster. If, you know, everyone's taller than me, so likely it's true. But you want to feel where the arm span opens, the chest widens, and you begin to deliver the focus into your breath stream. So fielding, and if you need to make changes, moving sand, moving blocks, it's all okay. You could even do this without the belt, if that's fine. You're finding that to be too tense or bringing too much direction into the shape. You can be random with the props, but the vision here is to begin the hip, kind of the hip collection here. So as the back muscles feel the arch, the hip feels that centering down from the spinal column into the hip width. And how great that you have knees that move out to help the hip. That's what I want to encourage here. I'm assuming you've got knees that move out, whether the knees are happy knees or not. We support them with blocks so they are a little more comfortable. But feeling that hip stream out of the back stretch. You know, if you feel like you've warmed up a little bit with your neck position, you might be able to lower that blanket height. So there's less roundedness in our cervical spine. So I don't want your chin to push to your chest. I want you to have like this gap here at the throat. So the endocrine glands, this whole throat span, thyroid, parathyroid, this area is open. Doesn't have anything on it, right? Just relaxes. Nothing going in. Breath is going in through the nose. Ribs are spanning with the breath. Take a few more moments here. Just about another maximum minute, so about 12 breaths. Just if you're using the sandbag, you're using weight so that you have to work a little harder to get that oxygenation right into the lungs, right? That operating lift and lower with weight on it is weight training. Relax the face, the jaw. Enjoy symmetry while you have it, where you find some inner balance with the stretch for both hips, both shoulders. Okay, now let's slide the sand aside, unbuckle, okay, or unthread your belt, and you can still leave it on your mat. You don't have to put it all aside as far as the belt goes, but not on the thighs anymore. And then as you begin to motion the knees to point up, okay, find just a focus where the arch is dominant in the back muscles. Feel the arch. Don't try to push the hips up or do a pelvic tilt, but feel that arch conveyed in the back. That stretch down through the lower belly. Okay, arms could be out, they could be stretching back. Feel kind of nice if I had a chair I could hold on to here, but this is fine. All right, now with the weight into your feet, I want you to push into your feet and move your hips to the right. Okay, so I push into my feet, I move my hips right, and then I roll to the left. Okay, now take it slow. You're going to lean to that left side You're going to find, if you have a ball or a block, they both work well, on the inside of the right knee for some of us. Some of us are good with side sage without the ball under the knee. I like to use the ball. Some will tend to place the knee that's stretching back close to the left foot. They like to kind of let that be supportive, so they don't use an extra prop, but props are great. Props is what we use in this class. So I get my sand on my outer right hip, and I'm just gonna kind of work my way. So now my thighs, instead of moving out, they're rolling in. Okay, although the left thigh is still an external rotation, it's still moving out. So as I lean down, I get this all set up with my sand, weight bearing on my hip. And then when I lean into that left side, I stretch the right arm overhead. I'm thinking the blanket's gonna be enough today. But if you decide that's not gonna work for me, you get a block, you place it overhead on the blanket, and that will probably suffice. Okay, so the left arm between the bolster and the blanket, there's a gap there, and the gap might be a little bit snug at the lower shoulder, left shoulder blade. It might feel like it kind of pulls it under and stretches in the joint. That might be kind of a nice little bonus here. But at any rate, it's ideal to let your body settle and feeling where there's separation in the body. Like it's one, I suppose you could say I'm one, but there's a lot of stuff, right? Lots of fluids that are moving through these tissues, and you're trying to improve your circulation by doing these shapes and feeling that reach across the muscles. Okay, and you might not even identify with certain spots we're focusing into, just exploring being in the pose or taking a rest. Okay, now as the feel of the side stretches, if you're loving that side body stretch, the side abdominals, you could always nudge the sandbag a little bit down. If you push it too far onto the side of that thigh, it might feel like it's easier. Okay, so you might go feeling hip right on the bone. Okay, and then feeling how you create that opposing reach with the extremities, the right arm and the right leg that connects into the hip, right? So the right hip stretches back. Let the weight of your head relax on the blankets. Feel the breath moving through your nose. Okay, now the tailbone might be in more of a neutral state than a arching, flexing like cat-cow. It's just sort of, it's in neutral. And it's not pushing back or under. But it might feel like there's a little bit of anticipation of lengthening. Okay, so when we begin the process of shifting, I want you to get the fullest reach you can right now before you move out. Because you do move, right, the bones to get out of the shape. So if you're liking this, you don't want to leave it. There's no requirement you have to leave the pose. If it's feeling nourishing for you, you can stay as long as you like. I don't know, maybe an hour in this pose would be too much. Probably 5 minutes is your max, so you can get out of it comfortably. Okay, now let's take a reach. So the right armpit chest stretches open like you roll the back of your head on the blanket. Don't roll off of it. It's right on the edge there. Okay, now use your twisting powers. So take the sand off the hip. Okay, feel your body twist to the left. Okay, all right, bring both hands on the mat between the bolster and the blankets. You can bring your knees together. This will probably be more comfortable. Knees together in more of a fetal position, but kind of feel where the back engages to create twisting. Okay, if you can lift up your chest like you're looking up to the ceiling. This is between like an up dog and a push-up. Okay, now we come back through center. It's like a dog push-up. Okay, come back center in front of your bolster and take a belt. It's somewhere nearby. You just had a little while ago. And it might be a time where we just get our feet in the belt. We don't have to wrap it around our ribs. I like the formal Iyengar boat pose where you make the loop and you put it into your armpit chest and scoop up the feet. I'm a real fan of that one. So if you're like, I'm not, you can lean back into your bolster and kick the feet on up and give it like 20-second intervals. Come back down, lean back, come back up. Not a problem, right? I kind of like that little core power focus. But if you got your belt connected, you might enjoy a little bit of elaboration on the connection of your back and your legs. So I'm going to bring the belt in a loop to my back overhead to my, I try to keep it mid body. I don't want it under my low back really. And then I'm going to loosen it up massively. Okay, so as I place the belt under my feet, I bring the belt behind me at my core up to my armpit chest and then bring the legs forward. And they really don't go forward as much as they just kick up, right? So kind of notice in your powers in your body when you're sitting on you're sitting, right? You lean back and you kick on up, okay? Arms go forward. This is the beauty of this one. It can be kind of hands-free. And you can feel that response in the rib cage with the breath. Right? I like to feel all the areas that get motion internally when I'm breathing. Right? It's not just like heart area or upper lobes of the lungs. It's this mid-body, it's the upper back. Okay. All right, now feel if you can lean back a little bit. You've got your bolster, I suppose. That will be a holder for you. If your feet are not liking it, you can scoot the belt closer to your heels. I'd be a little careful where you keep positioning the belt because of your knees. It might not feel like a knee problem, but it could become one, okay? So my knees are gonna go close as they can because I got this belt holding my feet. Can't really get my knees apart. And then as you're going forward, I want you to try to find a little balance. Head tips back, okay? Lower the feet a little bit. See if you can bring your arms out to the sides. Make sure the buckle's not on your armpit or your ribs that could unbuckle. Get a massive breath through the rib cage. Okay, maybe head's gonna tilt back. All right, hold your belt, bend your knees, lift up through the chest. Okay, and then take the belt off. If you are simply in this position, right, with the knees pointing up, now I want you to put your elbows back on the bolster and just windshield wiper, focus on the knee movement. The hips are gonna push down. They lift up one at a time. They slide across the glutes, but just let the knees wiggle side to side, okay? And then as you get a feel here of that cooperation of the pelvis, you know, it's cooperating often. We're gonna go to the right. We're gonna go to side sage on this side as well. Okay, so it wouldn't be a good class if you only did side sage on one. Okay, so this ball is on the inside of the left knee, or your left knee is close to your foot, or some of us are gonna feel comfortable stretching it back. Okay, it's all about can you relax in it? Not that you can do it. Okay, stand on the outer left hip, lean into the right. Okay, left hand reaches overhead to the block near you. All right, now where the ribs roam, right, is to use the bolster just like you use the sand for resistance training on your breathing muscles. So even though it seems like, why would I labor like that? Well, you want to find a way to engage and resist, right? And then on the out breath, it's a little more calming for the nervous system, right? You put some energy into it, right? You're toning the breathing muscles, tuning them up. And it's okay to let your head relax. So feeling the body being breathed, right? Breathe through the nose so it's embodied like there's a tube from the nose down in towards the diaphragm for sure. but this intercostal area, it fills up. And then you let go. And you might only have control of sometimes parts of yourself, right, in any given day. So kind of feel where the controls are with your breathing. Let the body weight relax into the hip. Now, final reaches, right? Left leg is either just resting on the ball, or you push the ball a little bit to the left and your leg stretches back. Now, it's not like I'm trying to point my left leg, like straight, okay? Left arm doesn't have to be straight either. Everything's got curves. So feel where the curve is on elbow and on knee, and then use the breath to stretch those parts away from each other. I think that's the final frontier in general, okay? Even when you're sitting to just meditate and breathe, it's like, okay, what can I do with this inner environment with my breath? What's curious about it? So right now we're lucky to lie on our side. We've got some cushions, that's so nice. We've got a blankie. So just feeling the breath and its motion inside, assuming that we are able to breathe. Now, tailbone, right? It's in neutral. It's all neutral back there. Okay, now what's in front of that, right, is interesting too, right? That's trying to lengthen. But what if you just kind of soften the belly here, lower belly. And then as you move the sand aside, move the left knee to the right knee, squeeze so that you kind of come up. You take a little bit of that rotation to the right, so hands are on the space between the bolster and the blankets. They can be kind of outside of the blankets. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now I kind of like this this movement and arching my back. I'm a big fan of that, but I'm going to move my left leg on top of the right, so it's a little easier. And then I can engage in revolving my core more, right? Toning, kind of tuning up in those muscles. Okay, now feel that you can lift up through the chest, looking up towards the ceiling. Give it a try. Feel that upper neck circulation. And then as you come back to kind of rocking on the right hip, move the bolster over to the side yard. Get a block that's in the back, and I want you to end up with one blanket at the back. Don't assume you're going to lie on it. Okay. Roll onto your back. Bring the knees in, because knees like to go inwards after all that stuff. And get a ball. Okay. We're going to need things like blocks, a ball. All right. Sounds like a elementary class. Okay. Out of the play yard. Here we are. So take a ball, center of the knees. If you don't have a ball, you could use a block. That's the narrow setting. However, we are eventually going to need both those blocks under the pelvis. So I'm going to use the blanket just at the lowest setting, the lowest fold, right? I like to use that word setting. But as I have very little, I have a little cushion. I'm going to make sure it's not under my neck. Okay. Now, push into your thighs, so just above the knee, right? And as I push, or if you're looking at your knees right now, it's kind of below the knee. I'm going to push into my thighs. I'm going to walk the hands up to the thigh lids, because that's an easier place to touch, right, versus my knees. And as I push in, my heel of my hand presses. And then as I lift up the hips, and then I lower back down. Okay, now let's try to get a feel of just the gliding here. So we lift up the hips, we stretch the arms overhead, and then we lift up our heels, and we lower down through the spine, and the arms go down just besides the hips, and the spine completely releases. Okay, in breath, lift the hips, arms overhead, Okay, and you'll find the end of your breath range pretty fast, I think, in this kind of pose. Lift the heels up and then lower down the spine. Now, feeling muscles beside spine, feeling the very basin of your back, the kidneys, kind of press them down. Breathe, and then center, hands beside hips, heels down. Okay, now bring the knees into the chest, take the ball out. Now we're going to use the blocks. So they're going to support sacrum. Okay, now we're going to add the blocks into the pelvis. So what I want you to do is when you place the blocks in, okay, they're not going to be smack dab together. Okay, they're going to be kind of pointed out. So when I'm on my back, I'm going to put the blocks under. And so you want to feel like, okay, I think I get what she's saying. So the blocks are like together like this. Okay, and they're kind of pointed out. That might be exaggerating. Like, I don't think you're gonna have that much space, but they'll support this rim right and out. And so we're gonna work into our hips. Now, if you're feeling kind of jammed in the chest and the throat here, just use no blanket. Right? No one should have more rounding in the neck, especially in our yoga lives, right? So let's see what we can do to eliminate that. Okay, so I have the blocks turned out. Now, if I reach down towards and I have my heels down, all that. If I reach down towards the edge of that block, furthest away, okay, and then I kind of lift up, there's my rear, right? And we're all different dimensions, I know, so that'll be a little challenging to make perfect for all of us. But turn the feet, bring the feet together, the knees out in cobbler's pose, okay? This is kind of cool. I like this variation. So my blocks point out. They're kind of in a V. Okay, then it supports my sacrum. Now, before we get the ball on that to roll it out, oh, I can't wait. Okay, so my feet are together. Now you can probably push your feet in firm. And you might go, oh, I can push and push and no more push, right? Enough of that. Now, with the knees outwards, see if you can just be graceful with gravity. Because this is a good one for letting gravity have you versus standing on the feet all the time and it drops down. So we just let the legs stretch. Yep, this has some similarities to all prone poses like frog pose, other things, but it's not any knee pressure. That's the beauty of this one. Okay, now hopefully it's kind of putting energy into the sacroiliac area. Okay, so you can feel the feet push. All right. Now let the arms rest down. Let's take about 3 more breaths. It's not much. Just we've been here a little bit of time. Kind of feel where in the back of the pelvis you feel this. Because to me, that's the area that takes some time to resolve. It's attached to our strongest muscle, right? It's close to the glute max. So we'll see how we can tease those tissues. All right, now with your feet together, you don't have to push anymore, they're already connected. Okay, feel the shoulders roll back like you're trying to lift up through the rib spaces below the sternum. Okay, now as I bring the knees to point up, I just move my knees up like butterfly. Let knees come together. Shift the feet apart. Where else will they go? And then as I push into my feet, I'm going to lift my heels up because it'll be so much better on my low back. So heels spring up, lift the hips up, and slide the blocks away. Before you get your hips down, get a ball. Okay, place it at your tailbone, and then lower down all the weight on the ball, and then side to side. So let your hips wag side to side. And hopefully that feels pretty nice after that. So we're going to be working on just how we collaborate in the center, right, to create a better inner lift in the pelvic floor. We couldn't use that. Okay, so as you go side to side, manage that weight on the ball, right? I shouldn't say that, just be on the ball. Let all your weight be on it. Don't manage it. Okay, bring the right ankle up and over to the left knee. So you're like figure fouring it here. And that ball is still there. Like, how am I going to do this? So door number 1 is just this. left foot on the floor. Door number 2, push into your left foot, but don't think that's going to do all the work. It's going to be your pelvic floor that's doing the work. So you're doing like a pelvic tilt. You're moving the tailbone under, and then you're going to move both knees in towards your chest. And if you feel like you're wobbly, that's the most normal feeling you should have right now, is a wibble wobble all over the place. The blanket height might affect you. So if you have a little more blanket height under your head, it might make it easier. So if you decide, okay, I'll go ahead and let that happen. I'll give myself a little more cushion. You can go with that, a little more height. Now hugging in the back of that left thigh. Okay, now let go of the left thigh, bring both legs straight up into waterfall. Kind of feel where the ball is. Is it too high up? Do you want to move it downwards before you switch sides? Okay, I'm going to bend my knees, lower my feet down, and see what it feels like to move it just like a ½ inch lower. Left ankle crosses to right knee, and then bring the knees into your chest. And it's okay if your ball is really squishy. That's not a problem. So probably it might feel good to have it a little bit squishy. But as you draw the knees in, you can always opt for the right foot on the floor. And we are going to go into the glute medius, kind of rubbing into the hips quite a bit next. So it's probably kind of feeling like it wants that pretty soon. Enough of this teasing, right? Come on, just let my hip get a little massage. So as you hug in the knees, your right leg can stay folded, the foot towards the seat, or it could kick up like a pump. I was thinking this is a water pump if I go up and down. So if I hold the back of that right thigh, notice the connection up into that right side of your back. Are we breathing? Okay, now lower down the right foot. I would just disengage the figure 4 with the right foot off the ground though, just you can bend it, but I find this interesting. So I uncross the left foot from the right knee, and I bring my hands down besides my hips. I bring the feet down, and then I just try to push into my feet, lift up, and move the ball to the right rear, and then roll across. Now there could be some people that are using like a tennis ball or tune-up balls for this one. You could. I think the softer ball interacts with mobilizing the fluids into these tight areas, so it's not so much a nervous system kind of tug of war, like tension, painful, it's softer. So yeah, I don't know if you've ever used some of the balls that don't have the little teeth on them like these two, they're not the acupressure balls, they're like Pilates balls. So yeah, I don't know if you feel the same. I'm curious. I've tried them, I haven't felt the same kind of rub in the muscle. I mean, it's rubbing it, but the little knobs on it seem to help. Okay, so as I kind of push into tissues, right? As you glide across, I want you just to come down, press through your right foot, lower on the left buttock, knees swerve to the left. Okay, take the ball out from the right side, let the knees swerve to the right, tuck the ball into that left rear. Now, you don't want it too low in the rear. It's almost like you want it right on the hip bone, because then you're going to lean the knees left and then mount up on the ball. So it's a little easier on your lower back, okay? And as you glide across, kind of nudge the hip tissues into the ball. Use all the weight. I mean, it might be one of these days your ball could pop, but it's the least of your problems, right? You want to get some feeling of pushing and massaging into the tissues. So give it a try. Take a few more moments here. Okay, now with that rub, with that pressure point into the hip, try to create a little bit of traction, right? Maybe you speed it up a little. And then when you guide back to the right, we're going to cross the right leg over the left leg. Hold it and bring the knees to the right. So counter twist, okay? So this is, I think, a bit of a challenging one sometimes for knees. So if it's a little bit of knee issue, you could take the ball, place it over on that right side so it's under the right thigh, okay? So if you're not sure, what I've done is I have that leg crossed over. I'm not resting on I'd rest on a blanket, and then the ball would be here. Yeah. Or you could use a block. You could use a blanket. Okay. But it is pulling here into the thigh tissue, right? So I am getting this nice pull. Let your head be down into the TFL, right? So you can feel it kind of motioning down. I would definitely avoid sand on that one. It's a little too much to add sand to this, this variation. Okay. All right. I don't know if you want to sand your hip. That's up to you, I guess. Okay, no pose police. That's one of our agreements here. I don't think anyone got an agreement letter or anything for their Zoom yoga. All right, now feeling where the arms can be way back, they can be open. I mean, you could have the hands resting on your ribs to feel your breath. Okay, now with the back muscles in quite a arch, they're just like having a good old time back there, working together and creating some spaciousness. So you can feel where the ribs get a stretch in these poses, but when you come back up, uncross, right leg out of left, unless you have the other way, left leg over right, ball, I'm gonna use a ball to the left side, and then my knees go left. And I'm kind of interested in, you know, I really want to keep it comfortable in my pelvis. So I don't want to push my hips over one side or the other. Just cross it, ball to the side and knees over. And again, if it's a knee, if it's knees over, knees don't want to do this. There's always modifications, right? Some of us might decide, what would that be? It'd be ball center of the knees, knees to the side. Okay, so there's a good option there. It's option 2. Okay, arms could be open or straight back. Okay, so feel this sensation. We are going to come up and do some little bit of maneuvering in our back muscles, a little bit of feeling in child's pose. So I want you to feel where the side band of the thigh comes into play, because when we go in those poses, that kind of grips up. And as the spine receives the circulation here, feel the lowness of the breath, right? Is it slow and low in the body, slow and low in the belly? And now come back in through center, brush it off. Okay, knees side to side, swing them around, and kind of go side and lean, right? So you're leaning for your hips. Your back isn't in the most safest place it could be, right? It's not, you're not having hands and knees, you don't have an issue with your neck rounding. So this could be our best work, you know, is for homework, is do stuff on your back when your back is a nice length. You're not rounding your back and looking at devices, right? You're just, well, you might be right now, but your back is in a nice, comfortable, elongated position, okay? So let's see what we do with this. Now we'll roll to the side, come around to hands, knees. If you need a blanket under your knees, I would just add it. Just have a folded blanket. This might be a little too chunky of one. Like if you have like a beach towel, that might even be better, because this just pushes my hips up. So these high folded blankets has their place, but sometimes with knees, it's not a good place. So just kind of notice that. You can always unfold it, right? So it's a little lower. All right, so get a bolster, place it across at the top zone, okay? So I have the bolster way away from my hands. And first things first, hands on bolster, have the hand reach so it's like you can't really coordinate your movement like this. You're like, oh, it's at the ends of your reaches. So feet could touch a wall or not. I'm trying to touch my wall, but I'm not able to, I guess. So keep the armpit chest open. Now, what's kind of interesting about this is you can do things like put blocks here. I just love props to keep this reach, but I find that I'm pretty competent to get my arms to reach. So, but if you do decide to be kind of to work this area and be kind of lazy with it, you can put blocks under and just breathe. It might be easier. So feeling that pull through the back. Feel your head. I don't want you to let your head drop to the floor. So feel this is kind of it's somewhat of an active pose. It's not go to sleep in between the arms. Okay, now feeling how the back is flexing here, bring the hands or the elbows down if that's easier for your wrists, and then go into curling cat. So we arch the spine and then we curl the tail under, chin to chest. Inhale, arch the spine, cat cow. I think of it as curling cat for some reason, but when you're moving the back muscles, you know, kind of move your arms, your shoulders, your hips, wag your tail, but not just your tail, it could be your back up here. You can move this a little side to side. So play with kind of working the wiring of the mid body. Give it a few moments. So movement, back muscles rounding, arching. Okay, now lean back, get a block wide, okay? Reach your hands onto the sides of the block and lower the elbows down. And I want you to hold the block up. Okay, don't hit your head with it. Move your elbows forward and let your forehead touch the floor and move the block towards your upper back. Okay, now if it touches the back, okay, that's fine. If it touches the back, you might be able to push the block into the back, but I tend to go, block is flat. I don't tend to turn it this way and nudge my back, but I find that kind of interesting, like to play with utilizing the prop to keep the back lengthening, not rounding. I'm pretty comfortable with flat. Okay, now give it a few more breaths. Stretch the triceps. Now, if this doesn't work for you, some people don't like the elbows on the ground. It's just too harsh. So you could use your bolster. And this is nice because it stretches the armpits a little differently because my elbows are now higher. So you could go with this one. Okay. So this is a good option. Now my forehead's on the bolster. It's just a little easier on my neck. Okay, another 10 minutes. Okay, maybe 10 seconds. Wow. Upper arm differences. And your non-dominant arm might be the arm, right, that you're feeling. It's tighter. Seems to make sense. Okay, now come on center. All right, now we're going to go ahead and push the bolster away. Hands, just have the mat. And you're going to reach the hips forward. So stretch the hips up towards the chest and move the hips back towards the heels. Try to get close to a wall now. Okay, so you want to find that your feet touch the wall and you're extending the front of the thighs, reaching the chest up, and then movement is the hips stretching back. Okay, one more time. Curling. So the chin is in, the chest is up. Okay, now next time you come back, try a child's pose. Knees almost as wide as your mat. Feet together, hips stretch back. Okay, now let's say you're here and you're thinking, I want that bolster under my forehead. I would just say get it. I like the bolster under the forehead. Now, there's so many variations of child's pose. There's just too many. So if this is not polite for your knees, like you know better, it just doesn't work for your knees, get a blanket. Not that you have to do this, but I'd say have 2 blankets. You got one under your knees. You got one blanket roll. You're going to place it behind you on top of your calves. Tuck the blanket in as close to the back of the knees as you can. So you can actually stretch forward, place the blanket completely behind my knees, hold it and lean back. Right, that's a great support for my knees. I mean, I kind of forget how you can push forward and unroll it into the back of the knee gap. And then as you lower your forehead down, I can massage my calves this way. Yeah, so if you haven't tried it, if you decide I don't do child's pose, I don't want to do anything she's doing with that. You can always come forward on your bolster like this, have it lengthwise, straight down, and then just stretch forward on the bolster and rest here. So there's something for everybody. You are going to try to get the knees out though, right? So even if I'm spaced down on my bolster, because my knees don't like this pressure, I still want you to try to have the knees out, right? So even if I'm here, I still want my knees to stretch out like frog pose, like the knees are part, the inside of the feet pressing the floor, forehead on hands. This is a good one for digestion. Very good pose, right? If I'm straight down, child pose or frog. Okay, take a few more breaths. And if you're kind of an advanced child, you can have the bolster between the knees, like you straddle the bolster all the way through, and then you rest the chest on the bolster. This is my very favorite one. I'm still able to do it, but I have the bolster center. I wouldn't sit like this. I won't sit because I don't think that's the right thing for your knee joints when you're sitting up on your hips down, but to each his own. Okay, now come up, toes under, stretch out the backs of your legs, big time. Lift up, whew. Feels good. Stretch your heels back up at the wall. So give them a little elevation. If you're lucky to have a little baseboard, that might be your best thing, best prop ever. So hands push the floor away. If this is a real trick for your wrists, I would use, first thing, I try the blocks under my hands. Okay, I use this first. And if that doesn't work, put your elbows on the ground. I know that's extra credit. That's a lot more upper body strength than some of us want to work with. But this is a little easier on my wrists. Okay, take a few moments, walk back to Uttanasana. Be careful if your blanket's taken over your mat. So you walk your feet a little forward and your hips back to the wall. You got to walk your feet a little bit away so you don't take a somersault. All right, now hips are back, spines are long, and our head lowers down. You can hold your elbows. You can let the arms dangle. Yeah, enjoy using a wall for your seat to be supported and help you create that length. I love the wall for forward folds. My feet are a little bit apart. I can definitely have them closer together if I prefer. You can feel the difference. If my feet are closer, right, the inversion feels different. I kind of buckle with that a little bit. So have enough separation. Yeah. Yeah, take the time so the blood pressure lowers, right? It could be a little intense in the beginning. So breathe slow. It only helps. Okay. All right. All right, so when we're shifting out, what we're going to focus towards right now is I want us to come down and do a little tummy time. That used to sound kind of funny, but now I think people feel like, oh, tummy time. No, not tummy time. Okay, so this is not tummy time, this pose. This is back time. Now, when I bend through the legs, I can feel that kind of brings the surge of my head down. Like it's like, oh, here we go. So have the arms help you. You might kind of shrug your shoulders, get them ready, not just your wrists, but your shoulders too. And then when I reach forward, I try to think kind of monkey. I don't know what a monkey's going to be thinking, but I'm trying to reach out of my rib cage, right? Stretch forward and around. And then as I come down, I get back into my feet again. And I lower down the knees. And then I take my bolster. I'm going to put it kind of on my blanket. It doesn't really matter if yours is on a blanket or not, but the knees are apart. And my bolster is going to touch to the upper thighs. You could be forward a little bit more on the bolster if you like. Okay, you could be back. Probably forward's going to be helpful because it will create this nice correlation. So elbows are down and the back of the pelvis relaxes. Wag your tail a little bit. Try to keep the rib cage centered. right? Meaning you don't have to overly arch. This is a funny one. I don't feel like I have to do much with my back muscles. Okay, now my arms are going to stretch by the sides, and then your shoulders are going to motion. They're going to try to motion back. Don't be surprised if you peek back at your shoulder head and it's not going anywhere. It's just dropping. So unless someone can put their hands on your shoulders and hold you up, which feels like the best adjustment ever, is somebody holds you just a little bit on this one. So what do we do to get that? All right, let's get a belt. Okay, because I'm not assuming you have somebody to hold your shoulders. Somebody the other day called it a yoga doula. I never heard of that, yoga doula. Okay, so hands holding on to the, somehow I don't think that's going to be a profession right now. Okay, so the hands are holding the belt. Okay, now shoulders back. I know your head has been lifted, you're tired. So hold on and try to lift up through the arms. Breathe. Okay, shoulders are kind of the last thing that are going to move on this one. Okay, now relax your grip on the belt, come down with the elbows in Sphinx pose, lift up the chest, relax your rear. Okay, the rear is probably already waking up, like I'm going to help you out, but keep the rib cage stretching forward, breathe. Okay, now head lowers down. Okay, I want you to bring your forehead to your hands. If this is squishing your chest and you're like, I just can't stand how this feels on my chest, you can always move a little bit further forward, right? So just know that. Okay, now as you come up, you're going to bring your arms back. You're going to hold the belt. You're going to get out of this chest press situation and hold the belt so it's under the rear. It's below the rear. Okay, my belt's resting below my rear. Now, I'm going to grasp a hold of the belt. I'm going to try to roll my shoulders back, like they're trying to go with the blades to the spine. And this is it. This is my max lift. I don't want to overdo it. So the legs press down. This is key. Knees press down, tops of the feet push. Inhale, exhale, try to lift the arms up. Yeah, let the hips be where they're at. Don't try to tighten anymore in the glutes. Okay, now let's try that. Try to squeeze the glutes a little bit, press down to the feet, the knees lift up, lifting up through the chest. I know you feel like you've just done about every kind of exercise you could in the book in just 10 seconds in your back. Okay, let go. Whew. Okay, place the belt aside, bring your hands below the shoulder area, stretch up through up dog, lift up through the chest, and then come back to neutral. Go back and forth like you're on a track. Okay. Okay, now as I move back to neutral, take a block for each hand. Okay, because I only have two blocks. 2 hands, maybe you have more than 2 blocks. And bring the knees together behind the bolster and take the right foot and step it to the top right corner. Now here's where I really like this bolster to stay. I like to lift my left thigh up so my knee is just a hair off the ground, but I'm really stretching my left quad, okay? Right foot turns out. Yeah, I get some people commenting on this one from time to time, like they just think it's so strange, doesn't feel right. So bolster is on, my thigh is on the bolster. This is touching the bolster, okay? It's on the bolster. The right foot turning out, that could be challenging, right? So it's turning out my right foot, and then I'm trying to stretch up at my waist. Now I'm breathing, kind of looking around, keep the hips stretching. Yep, there you go. Yep. Hands could be on the blocks as high as they can be. If you decide, I don't care about these blocks, if they don't help me at all, I suppose you could be with your elbows down in your bolster too. That's just a little intense, right? If I lower down my elbows on my bolster, which I can get to, some of you might be, this might work better. If your hands don't like pushing onto the blocks, it requires a little more flexibility to lower your elbows. But if it's there, then take it. Okay. use it or lose it. Okay, now when I switch sides, I'm just going to keep it so simple. I'm not going to step forward. I'm just going to come back, bring my right knee to the center of the bolster with the short end, left foot steps out, and see the bolster kind of slides. So I have to sometimes just push my left hand down the bolster so it doesn't go forward. So my quad gets that stretch. Blocks in or your elbows on the bolster. That'll keep the bolster from sliding if your elbows are on it. But feel that stretch through the frontal bones, right, of this right thigh up into the hip. Breathe. It only helps. Feel the arch. Feel the rib cage. Okay, now notice how the right rear, it's kind of contracted, like you can't really, to disengage that would be a little tricky right now when you're stretching your hip flexor this way, the back leg forward. So I want you to kind of keep that imprint, that kind of baseline in the hip. You're going to come back with the hip, turn the bolster across the mat like this, so horizontal across the mat. Now, if you're not a pigeon person, you're gonna just observe for a second. So those of us in pigeon, we're gonna walk our left foot toes, heel to the right side of our mat. And we're gonna reach our left thigh out to the left side and then lower down. It's kind of an interesting shape, right? Because you're going half of the leg is stretching wide to the side to kind of get the inner thigh to stretch as well as the hip. It's a good one. So lower down the elbows. It's definitely, it keeps getting repeated in classes. Okay, so if you're like, that's not going to work for me. Okay, so if it's not going to work for you, those of you in sleeping pigeon, keep on, keeping on. Those of us here, we're going to go ahead and step the right foot forward carefully. Take a seat on the bolster. All right, and then we're going to bring our left foot on top of a block, like so. And you can add your ball under your right knee, and you can add sand. I would say sand on the leg that's not up on the block, okay? And then as you lean forward, enjoy the benefits of seated pigeon, okay? So the ball for me, I have to kind of push it in so I can feel it supporting, kind of squishing into the side of the knee. Okay, so the hands back on the bolster and stretch the rib cage forward. Now, if your knees are really unhappy to do this much folding, but the leg on the block is okay, you can always stretch out the right leg. Put the ball under it. Don't have to use a sandbag. That's just an option. And then see if that works for you. I don't think taking the foot higher is going to make it easier, unless you're trying to put your foot behind your head today. But in fact, if the foot on the lowest height of the block is the best, okay? Or you can go without the block. Okay, now those of us in pigeon, I think we're on left side pigeon, I'm pretty sure. All right, so left side pigeon. Start to move your arms to push and to arch through the back. Okay, lean to the left rear, stretch across so you're feeling weight in left hip, and then the right side of the torso is lengthening for just a blip, okay? Come back to center, and then right knee down and left leg back. Okay, those of us in seated pigeon, we just take our time, come up high through seated, and switch the foot that's on the block. So it'd be the right foot. Now, it's true that if you have your leg horizontal from your ankle to your knee in the sleeping pigeon would be somewhat of an ideal maneuver to try to go for, but you know, this rarely happens for me. It happened right now, but I don't always force it. So if it's like, yeah, this is easier, I go with that. If it happens to work itself out, I can feel the difference in my hip. But lowering down is a big part of the pigeon pose on this one. So the restorative quality, we're trying to lower down the forearms, push into the wall if you're lucky to have a wall behind you with your foot, because that'll help you engage in the hip. Okay, those of us seated, block in front, right foot on top, ball under the left knee. Sand could be on the left thigh here, and then I lean forward. Perfect option. Without any of the props, you can always do this just on a bolster or some blankets if you don't want to sit on a bolster. Have your foot crossed forward. Probably something under the knee might be helpful. But try to flex through the right foot. And those of you in pigeon, sleeping pigeon, it might be challenging to flex your foot. You might be like, I don't know about that. Give it a try. Take a few more breaths here. Right-legged pigeon, seated or sleeping. I feel that inner thigh tug. Yeah, I want to feel that. So it's a little bit an inner leg. You can always feel kind of that wrap to the side of the thigh, to the hip. Good. Yep. Breathe. It only helps. Okay, now come on up. Seated poses are the most advanced, so I try to make them kind of a gently persuade the body to find its alignment in this one. So when we come around, we're all going to join to, if your leg is back, you're going to swing it back forward. I know your left leg is back. Come back forward. Move your bolster back towards the wall. If you got something crammed behind it like a blanket, I'd say you can sit in front of the bolster and then just push it back. That's usually easier. Kind of moving the bolster with your seat on it is not that easy. I've tried it a lot. Okay, so I can reach back and touch the wall. If you're don't love touching the wall in these twists, take it easy. Don't go too close. It's a nice way to work your shoulders. Okay, maybe it's not nice, but it's a good way to get alignment. So we need a ball. We need a sandbag. We don't have to have a sandbag. I'm going to say let's just use blocks, okay, for the support. So we're going to take first things first here, we're going to take a block and we're going to place it at its second setting, right? So it's narrow. I guess the second settings are all high, narrow, flat. Okay. How would you explain this one? So it's not the lowest setting second, it's not pointed up tall, but I'm going to place it between my right foot and my left thigh. Okay, so if you just put the block on the sole of your right foot, not on the inside of the sole, and then place your foot close to your left inner thigh, it's going to make this a little bit of a gap, right? Well, it's going to help open up the back. Okay, now we don't have the same option for the shoulders because it's kind of hard to stick a block in between your shoulder blades unless you want to get some tape out, but we'll just stay with this. So we got our ball under the right knee. What I'm going to propose, though, is a ball under my left knee, because I like to have knee support, and a block under my right leg. I am all supported now. I got a block here between my foot and my leg. I got a ball under my knee and a block under my right leg. Okay. So what I want you to do now is you're going to add that support on the top of the right thigh, and you're going to feel that left heel reach out. And as you turn to the right, reach your right hand back for the wall. So left hand touches the right knee, and you can feel that rotation through your right shoulder. Okay, so the right hand, instead of the fingers just pointing up, you're going to try to turn them. So we call this the shoulder clock, the arm clock. We're turning it towards 3, I guess. So left hand to right knee, turn. So let the shoulder, see if it actually responds up here in the armpit chest. If it's pretty spiked sensation, like you don't tolerate this one well, you can put your hand down like on a blanket or just have it a little lower at the wall, okay? And maybe you don't push the shoulder back if it's kind of touchy. You just touch the wall like this. Okay, some of us, the engagement in these areas is pretty spicy. So breathe. Feel the hand touching onto that knee and see if you can emphasize the feeling of the left leg reaching to the side over there, to the left. Focus on the other areas besides just the shoulder. And then as you feel the body turn, feel the rib cage. Expand on the inhale. and center on the exhale, which is when you want to work on that ability to keep rotating. I don't want to say that you have to twist more, but feel the ability to rotate on the exhale. Now let your head maybe turn towards the wall. Okay, now head just lifted up from spine. Bring the right hand to your right rib cage. The shoulders might be like, okay, finally. A little more ease. Now slip the right hand behind your back, so towards your left hip, and then bring your left arm down the left leg and lean in. Now, what I usually use on this would be a block, but I got all my blocks taken. So I'm just gonna let my arm rest onto my leg and try to keep this turn through the ribs to the right. Yeah, try to keep the ribs stretching up like they're curving. I know it's a cage, but it's like, can you lift up a little through the heart to the ceiling? Breathe. And now come back through center, take away the block from the right foot, close the gap up here, and then bring the right foot to the left thigh. Stand here on the right thigh, right? Left leg crosses over right. If this is a real challenge for your knee joints, you can always pass. There's always post passing. But the knee is going to keep moving to that right side. Like I'm trying to get my left foot to push down. My knee goes right. I stretch my right arm to the left leg, and then into the deeper twist I go. Right, if you're a little bit afraid of it, like the pressure in the abdominal muscles, just go slow. You can have your left hand on your bolster. You can find the in-breath through the arch of the spine, and then feel the out-breath with the twist. Okay, now find the arches of the spinal column and then come back center. That's a brief one, but it's nice to kind of get that longer hold. To be honest, I think this hold is probably easier for most of us. I'm not so sure how you're feeling about it, but the arm at the wall can be challenging, even though it looks like an easier twist. It's because of the shoulder. So you might find we can hold this one longer, but we've done it before. So just kind of feel as you're pressing that movement in the abdominals. Okay, change sides. We're doing all the same work though, right? It's even though we're just moving the leg, the extremities, it's all the same stuff. So I got my block from the left foot, meaning both sides work each direction. So I got my sand on my left thigh. Okay, so if you want a ball under the knee, I would say repeat it on the second side. If you have the ball under the knee, use it equally on the second. Okay, now as you turn, you're going to bring your right hand to your left knee and the left hand back to the wall. And one side might comply different. It might be like, wow, this shoulder is so much more available for this position. And so rather than, really kind of having a meltdown about that, see if you can get a feeling of holding the knee, lifting the heart, pulling and twisting. If you're doing like a chair twist, you have to do, one hand's going to pull and one's going to push to engage the back muscles, right? And also the spine relief. So hold on to the knee, lift up the heart, push with that left hand. You can turn the fingers towards the left. You can do that arm clock, shoulder clock. Breathing. Now left hand to the back, right arm stretches down to that right leg. Feel the rib cage turn to the left. Okay, and you can always bring the left arm to stretch up and over. This might be okay just to hold that back side, the left side of the back. Feel that turn. Breathe. It only helps. Okay, now back is arching, keep it lifting up, kind of visualize it's lifting, 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 come back center. Take the block out, slide the left foot to the right thigh, and then cross the right leg over the left leg, and then take that full twist. Now you don't have to touch the wall, but you might find it's easy. It's an interesting concert of motion in your back. It's really intriguing why this is a little easier. is because it's kind of pulling both sides of the back together. The hips are centering. It's magic. Okay. So feeling the turn. Feel the body weight into the sitting bones. Feel the lift through the rib cage. Just breathe here now. And now from all these rotations from hips and up, right, we're going to go from hips down or ribs down. So as you unwind, let's take the sand. I think we'll put the sand over where you're looking to the right side of your mat. And then blocks go away. I don't think you'll need the ball. I don't get a suspicion you will. And then just come down off your bolster and turn towards your wall space. If you just don't have wall space today, don't worry about it. We have all kinds of ways of doing this. So blanket goes back. I'm going to go quarter fold, make it cozy. And then let's put our bolster to the right side, okay, of our mat. We're going to come on down. So on back, my feet touch the wall, and then I lower back. And I want you to hopefully follow this one to the T here. So we got our head on our blanket. Okay. Walk your feet up towards your seat. Okay, knees bent, pointing up. Now you're going to push into your feet and you're going to lift up your bum and move it to the left. So lift up, move it to the left. Let the right leg relax, bend, and left leg swings up over to the bolster on the right side. Okay, if you might use the ball here, huh? You can place the ball to that sacrum area. You might decide you don't like to use the ball. And then if you have the sand, just bring it up to your waist and kind of roll it down to the left hip. Okay. Now the twist is easy, right? We've done all that warm up in our upper body. So the shoulder can really replenish the chest, opening through that left side. And let your head roll to the left, of course, that finds the neck elongating. It's a good area to feel like it's important. We seem to spend energy on the bigger parts, or the parts that we think are kind of feeling the tension, but we all have stuff in the neck. So feel if you can let your head roll. Maybe you go both sides right now with your head nodding. And then feeling where there's that pure motion of the neck. Because neck muscles, right, are affected by chest muscles. And then clearly the upper vertebrae up into the brain. All that weight on top of it, you know. Even though it's a whole spine, it's the small vertebrae at the top. So feeling if you can let that left leg relax a little more. Maybe you have to put your bolster closer to your right knee, or kind of pivot it so the leg conforms to the bolster. Relax the heart, the shoulders. Pull your head back in center. I want you to try to switch to that second side with this little disruption in your upper back. So you'll feel from the mid to the lower, it's going one direction. So feel the upper back, shoulders kind of weighted. You're going to just move the ball if you have that. But feel that kind of swing of the knees in center. Place your feet to push down. Move your hips to the right. Okay. I did move my spine a little to the right. Take the bolster on that side over to the left side. Okay. And then my hips, if I have to reset them, I'm just going to keep pushing them to the right. Left leg relaxes, right leg on top of bolster, over on that side. And then add your sand to the outer right thigh. You kind of feel where the balance is, especially when you're not standing on your feet. Where is my inner balance right now? Feel your arm open, feel your chest wide, and then respond to that movement of the breath in letting go. It's all on you, right, to find, and it does feel like a high bar sometimes when in a practice towards the end, right? How can I really let this practice serve me? And in turn, the world, right? And others. Now do a little check-in with the pelvis here. So it is in a kind of freestyle motion right now. It's really quite active. Both front, both back. So if it feels like right now for you to come into your last pose, which is inverted for this series, the legs would be up the wall with a bolster under pelvis. That might seem a lot, okay, after all these motions. We've done quite a few twists. So if you feel like what you'd rather do is have your back just on the flat ground and your legs up on a bolster bench, that's perfect for what we've addressed today. So I'm just going to show that real quick, but those of you that want to go legs up the wall, go for it. Okay. So I'm going to move the ball out. Then I'm going to move my sand. And I'm going to carefully roll to the left. Either way, if I go to the wall or I stay with bolster bench. So if I bolster bench it, just a quick review, you've got two blocks. You place them under your bolster. That's easy. Blocks are at the second. You bring them as high as you want. Your legs go up. If you got extra blankets, I just say stack everything up on top of that bolster. If you got two bolsters, stack them up, put your legs up, rest back. Sand on ribs. Okay, that's a pretty good one. Now, if you're going to go wall, okay, you just put the bolster at the base. You drag your blanket up to towards that area. Then you come sit up on the bolster, and you turn upside down, right? You want to be really close to the bolster, to the wall. I hope you're on the bolster. And I think a couple folds of the blanket works pretty good for me on this. Now, in the last pose, you might want to have just no blanket under your head, some blanket, sandy feet, and legs up. If you got your bolster bench, you can have the sand on your shins or the rib cage. And if you don't want sand on your feet or your shins, it could go here from heart to belly straight down. Okay. If you have an eye pillow, place it on. Might be really calming. Your arms are open and your shoulders find their direction, right, where they originate here. I mean, there is front space and shoulders, but we really have a hunk of it in the back. So feel that hunk of shoulders behind you. Let it rest down and open the elbows out. You can stretch them straight out to the side. You can bend the arms. And then just feel that supply of oxygenation drifting in and sweeping out the lungs. Just something you can relax into. Sometimes the brain, there's a lot going on. So feel if you can utilize your practice to remind what makes you is a body, right? Not just the brain. So feel how you embody sensations of breath, the ways of that inner world to heal, because it's always in rehabilitation, right? It's always in some sort of rehab in there through the organs, always working. So find a way to soothe and tone the core. Breathing big. Now connect to the tailbone, whichever pose you've chosen, just feeling that center-ish back of the pelvis. And then shift the feet away from the wall. Now, if you're with bolster bench, just take your time. You can circle your ankles. And then if your feet are up the wall, as you move your feet away, bend your knees. And then you can toss your sand overhead if you don't have any eyeglasses on the floor or glasses or water bottles. And you can also just put it to the side. Hug the legs in regardless of your pose, your pose choice, right? Whether you have your legs up or your legs on bolster, knees to the chest. Feeling that harmony on both sides of the pelvis. Rock over to one side and let your arms lower down to the floor and push yourself up and take a seat on the bolster. If you're on the floor with the bolster in front of you, you can take a seat on your blanket and feel the knees as they motion out. Feel the shoulders. Feel them so they span out. They're going out to the sides versus just behind you, like you're opening the heart. Bring the shoulders to lift up and roll back and down. Shrug and roll. Couple more strolls. And feeling that release in the lower torso down to the hips. Bring your hands up to balance in front of your heart. Find that inner lift with your breath through the back of the heart. Take a deep breath in, breathing in wellness. And as you exhale, soften the belly, breathe low and slow, bowing into that space behind your heart. And gratitude